You are tired all the time. After sleep, you are tired. After rest, the same. You go to the doctor. He looks at your hemoglobin test. Normal. He says, "Well, what do you expect? Everyone gets tired. Work on your routine." You leave. And you continue living with this exhaustion for another year, two, three. This is exactly it. Chronic fatigue with normal hemoglobin, behind which lies a hidden iron deficiency, and it is one of the most frequently missed conditions in modern medicine. Today, I, as a nutritionist, will explain why normal hemoglobin does not mean normal iron, which symptoms indicate a deficiency before lab tests show anything, and why spirulina is one of the most valuable nutritional sources of iron for people with chronic deficiency. Let me start by describing what life with iron deficiency looks like before it becomes visible in lab tests. Iron deficiency develops in stages. First, stores are depleted. Ferritin drops. At this stage, hemoglobin is still normal, but iron in the tissues is already deficient. This stage, latent iron deficiency, is the longest and the most frequently missed. A person lives with it for months and years, receiving diagnoses of stress, overexertion, or autonomic dysfunction. There are several characteristic stories I hear in my practice. First story, a woman, 28 years old, chronic fatigue, hair loss, brittle nails, constantly cold hands, hemoglobin 123, normal. Upon additional testing, ferritin 8 nanograms per milliliter with the lower limit of normal at 12 to 15. With optimal ferritin levels of 30 to 100, the picture became clear: deep tissue iron deficiency with normal hemoglobin. Second story, a man, 44 years old. He did strength training. After intense workouts, unusual weakness, declining performance, irritability. On examination, hemoglobin at the lower limit of normal, ferritin 11. It is specifically in athletes that iron deficiency develops faster due to hemolysis from foot strikes on the surface, sports anemia, and the increased needs of muscle tissue. Third story, a woman, 35 years old, a vegetarian for the last 5 years, conscious balanced diet, ferritin 9. On detailed questioning, iron sources in the diet were only plant-based, and the absorption of non-heme iron is about 5 to 10% versus 20 to 25% for heme iron. It is precisely this gap in bioavailability between plant and animal sources that is the key reason for deficiency in people who have given up meat. Fourth story, a girl, 21 years old, heavy period since adolescence, always considered fatigue to be the norm, never had her ferritin tested. On her first comprehensive blood panel, ferritin 7, microcytosis of red blood cells. It is heavy menstruation that is the most common cause of iron deficiency in women of reproductive age, and it is this cause that is often overlooked for years. What do all these stories have in common? Iron deficiency disguises itself. It does not come with obvious symptoms. It comes as fatigue, as apathy, as something is wrong without a diagnosis. There is important statistics. According to WHO data, iron deficiency is the most widespread nutritional deficiency in the world. About 2 billion people suffer from it, and the majority of them are at the stage of latent deficiency, when hemoglobin is still normal. This is exactly why testing only hemoglobin without ferritin leaves hundreds of millions of people each year without a correct diagnosis. There is an important observation about gender inequality in diagnosis. In women of reproductive age, symptoms of iron deficiency are often attributed to female characteristics or stress, in men to overwork. This is exactly why iron deficiency in both sexes is often diagnosed late, and this is exactly why ferritin screening should become the standard for annual checkups. This is exactly why latent iron deficiency is one of the most common nutritional deficiencies in the world, according to WHO data. About 2 billion people suffer from it. Now, the mechanisms. I explain as a nutritionist. precisely and to the point. Let me start with the basics. Iron in the body performs two key functions: transporting oxygen as part of hemoglobin and participating in energy production in the mitochondria as part of cytochromes. It is the mitochondrial function that suffers first, even when iron stores are already depleted, but hemoglobin is still normal. This is exactly why fatigue appears long before anemia. First mechanism: ferritin as the true marker of iron stores. Hemoglobin reflects the amount of iron in red blood cells. It drops last. Ferritin is a protein that stores iron in tissues. Ferritin is the first indicator to respond to deficiency. With ferritin below 30 nanograms per milliliter, tissue iron stores are already significantly reduced, even with normal hemoglobin. It is precisely this diagnostic gap between normal hemoglobin and already deficient ferritin that is the zone in which millions of people with unexplained fatigue live. There is a clinically important detail about ferritin as a marker of inflammation. Ferritin is an acute phase protein. With any inflammation, it rises, even with actual iron deficiency. This is exactly why in inflammatory conditions, one cannot rely solely on ferritin. CRP must be assessed simultaneously. Normal ferritin against a background of elevated CRP does not mean sufficient iron. There is an important clinical fact about what ferritin level should be considered optimal. The laboratory norm for ferritin often starts at 12 nanograms per milliliter, but clinical optimality is from 30 to 100. At values from 12 to 30, a person is formally within normal range, but is functioning with a deficiency. This is exactly why nutritionist physicians use a different reference point than the standard laboratory boundary. Second mechanism: iron, cytochromes, and ATP production. Iron is a component of cytochromes, proteins of the mitochondrial respiratory chain. It is through this chain that cells produce ATP, the universal energy molecule. With iron deficiency, the respiratory chain works inefficiently. Less ATP is produced per unit of consumed oxygen and glucose. This is exactly why, with latent deficiency of this mineral, a person experiences fatigue even after normal sleep. The cells literally produce less energy. There is a practical list of symptoms of latent iron deficiency that appear even with normal hemoglobin: constant fatigue and reduced endurance, hair loss and brittle nails. Iron is needed for keratin synthesis, cold hands and feet due to impaired thermoregulation, decreased concentration and memory, strange desire to eat ice, chalk, or dirt, pica, a symptom of severe deficiency. It is precisely such a list of symptoms that allows one to confidently suspect deficiency before taking a blood test. Third mechanism: spirulina as a source of non-heme iron with natural cofactors. Spirulina is a cyanobacterium with a unique nutritional composition. In terms of non-heme iron content per unit of weight, it is among the top naturally occurring products, from 28 to 80 milligrams per 100 grams, depending on the source. At the same time, unlike isolated preparations, spirulina contains iron in combination with natural cofactors: beta-carotene, B vitamins, chlorophyll. It is precisely this natural combination that makes the bioavailability of iron from spirulina significantly higher than from standard isolated preparations. There is an important detail about phycocyanin, the blue pigment of spirulina. Phycocyanin has antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. With iron deficiency, oxidative stress often increases due to impaired function of antioxidant enzymes that contain iron. It is precisely the phycocyanin in spirulina that helps reduce the oxidative stress accompanying iron deficiency, creating an additional nutritional effect. There is important data from clinical studies on spirulina and iron. In several studies in people with latent iron deficiency, Regular spirulina intake over 3 to 4 months significantly increased ferritin and hemoglobin levels. The most pronounced effect was noted in pregnant women and in elderly people. It is precisely this accumulated research base that makes spirulina a proven nutritional tool for correcting iron deficiency. There is an important note about spirulina safety. At the recommended doses, 800 to 1,600 milligrams per day, spirulina is well tolerated and has no significant side effects. Unlike iron supplements, it does not cause constipation, does not stain stools, and does not irritate the gastric mucosa. This is exactly what makes it particularly valuable for people with sensitive digestion, and this represents a significant portion of people suffering from iron deficiency. Fourth mechanism, beta-carotene and iron absorption. Beta-carotene is a precursor to vitamin A. Vitamin A, in turn, enhances the absorption of non-heme iron through several mechanisms. It reduces the inhibitory effect of phytates and polyphenols on iron absorption, stimulates the synthesis of transferrin, the iron transport protein, and improves the mobilization of iron from depots. This is exactly why the presence of beta-carotene in spirulina is not accidental but physiologically significant. It is a built-in cofactor for better iron absorption. Fifth mechanism, chlorophyll and structural similarity to heme. Chlorophyll and hemoglobin have a fundamentally similar molecular structure, a porphyrin ring. In chlorophyll, the central atom in this ring is magnesium. In heme, iron. This is exactly why chlorophyll is called the green blood of plants. In a number of studies, chlorophyll stimulated hemoglobin synthesis and contributed to replenishing the stores of this mineral. It is precisely the high chlorophyll content in spirulina that is one of the additional mechanisms of its positive effect in iron deficiency. There is an interesting historical fact about chlorophyll. During World War I and World War II, chlorophyll was used to accelerate wound healing and recovery after blood loss, precisely on the basis of its structural similarity to hemoglobin. Modern research has confirmed the stimulating effect of chlorophyll on red blood cell synthesis. This is exactly why green foods with high chlorophyll content have long been associated with supporting blood formation. Sixth mechanism, the complete amino acid composition of spirulina and hemoglobin synthesis. Hemoglobin consists of a protein part, globin, and a heme part. To construct globin chains, all essential amino acids are required. Spirulina contains complete protein with all essential amino acids. This is exactly why spirulina supports hemoglobin synthesis not only as a source of iron, but also as a source of building blocks for the protein part of the molecule. This makes it a complex nutrient for supporting hematopoiesis. Now about mistakes, the most common ones with iron deficiency. Mistake 1. Relying only on hemoglobin. Hemoglobin drops last. By the time it falls outside the normal range, iron deficiency has already been going on for months. The correct diagnostic minimum: ferritin, serum iron, transferrin and its saturation, total iron binding capacity of the serum. It is ferritin below 30 nanograms per milliliter, even with normal hemoglobin, that is the indication for correction. There is a practical diagnostic tip. If you are ordering tests yourself, ask the laboratory to include in the panel complete blood count with morphology, ferritin, serum iron, TIBC, transferrin saturation. It is precisely this set of 5 indicators that gives a complete picture of iron status and allows one to detect deficiency at any of the 4 stages of its development. Mistake 2. Taking iron preparations without considering tolerability. Ferrous sulfate, the most common form, causes gastrointestinal side effects in a significant proportion of patients: nausea, constipation, metallic taste. This is exactly why many people stop taking it before achieving a result. There is an important detail about iron forms. Ferric iron, oxide, hydroxide, is almost entirely non-absorbable without prior reduction to the ferrous form. This is exactly why organic iron forms, bisglycinate, gluconate, fumarate, have significantly higher bioavailability than inorganic forms. Spirulina contains iron in organic form embedded in a protein matrix, which ensures its good absorption without irritating the digestive tract. Iron bisglycinate and the mineral from food sources, including spirulina, are significantly better tolerated. Mistake 3. Washing down iron with tea, coffee, or milk. Tannins in tea and coffee reduce iron absorption by 40 to 70%. Calcium from milk competes with iron for the same transporters. This is exactly why iron preparations and iron-containing products should be taken at least 1 hour before or 2 hours after these drinks. It is precisely non-compliance with this rule that is one of the most frequent causes of ineffective iron correction. There is an additional tip about vitamin C. Add half a glass of orange or tomato juice or a few lemon slices to your spirulina intake. Vitamin C converts ferric iron to the ferrous form directly in the stomach. This simple combination can increase iron absorption from spirulina 2 to 3 times. Mistake 4. Not looking for the cause of deficiency. Iron deficiency is a symptom, not a diagnosis. Its cause always exists: heavy periods, hidden gastrointestinal bleeding, celiac disease with impaired absorption, vegetarianism, pregnancy. It is precisely finding and eliminating the cause that is the mandatory step, otherwise iron will be lost faster than it is replenished. There is an important example of a hidden cause. Celiac disease, autoimmune gluten intolerance, manifests as iron deficiency as one of its first symptoms. Iron deficiency with an otherwise normal diet containing sufficient meat should prompt the thought of impaired absorption. It is precisely screening for anti-tissue transglutaminase antibodies that is mandatory for recurrent or otherwise unexplained iron deficiency. Mistake 5. Expecting fast results from spirulina. Spirulina works as a nutritional source of iron, not as a pharmacological preparation. Replenishing tissue iron stores takes 2 to 6 months with regular intake. This is exactly why, with deep deficiency, spirulina is most effective as a supporting and preventive nutrient, while with pronounced anemia, more intensive pharmacological correction under medical supervision is required. Mistake 6. Not accounting for competitive interactions with other nutrients. Calcium reduces iron absorption. Zinc, when taken simultaneously with iron, competes for the same transporters. This is exactly why calcium and iron should be taken at different times of day. Conversely, vitamin C dramatically increases the absorption of non-heme iron. Taking it together with spirulina significantly enhances the effectiveness of nutritional correction. Now, what really works for iron deficiency? First, proper diagnostics. Get ferritin, serum iron, transferrin and transferrin saturation, total iron binding capacity, complete blood count with red blood cell morphology. With ferritin below 30, speak with a doctor or nutritionist about correction without waiting for hemoglobin to drop. It is precisely this expanded diagnostics that allows one to detect deficiency at a stage when its correction is easier and faster. There is another important marker, soluble transferrin receptor. It rises with cellular iron deficiency and does not respond to inflammation, unlike ferritin. It is precisely when anemia of inflammation is suspected that this indicator allows one to distinguish true deficiency from iron redistribution. You can request a referral for it from a hematologist or nutritionist. Second, add spirulina daily. More details in the products section. Third, optimize dietary sources of iron. Heme iron, red meat, organ meats, especially beef liver, is absorbed at 20 to 25%. Non-heme iron, legumes, dark green vegetables, pumpkin seeds at 5 to 10%. It is precisely the combination of plant iron sources with vitamin C from lemon, bell pepper, or sauerkraut that doubles and triples the absorption of non-heme iron. It is precisely this combination that makes a plant-based diet more effective in terms of supplying the body with iron. There is a specific list of foods with the best combination of iron and vitamin C. Lentils with tomato juice, spinach with lemon juice, pumpkin seeds with bell pepper. It is precisely such combinations, when regularly included in the diet, that can significantly improve iron status without pharmacological preparations, especially in combination with spirulina. There is a final practical dietary recommendation for iron deficiency. Eliminate phytates. Soak legumes before cooking. Cut back on coffee and tea during meals. Switch to fermented dairy or plant-based milk instead of regular. Calcium content is lower there, and iron from food is absorbed better. It is precisely these three simple dietary steps that often noticeably improve iron status within just a few weeks. Fourth, address deficiencies of vitamin D3 and B12. Both nutrients participate in supporting hematopoiesis. With their deficiency, correction of iron deficiency may prove insufficient. It is precisely the comprehensive nutritional approach, iron, D3, B12, folic acid, that ensures a more complete restoration of ferritin and hemoglobin levels. There is an important detail about B12 and folic acid. With their deficiency combined with iron deficiency, a mixed anemia develops. In this situation, correcting only iron will give an incomplete response. Hemoglobin will begin to rise more slowly than expected. It is precisely a comprehensive nutritional evaluation, getting iron, B12, folic acid, and vitamin D3 tested simultaneously, that allows one to build the correct strategy. Fifth, normalize gastric acid levels. Iron is absorbed in an acidic environment. With hypochlorhydria, insufficient gastric acid, iron absorption is noticeably reduced. This is exactly why people taking proton pump inhibitors long-term develop iron deficiency significantly more often. There is an additional tip for low gastric acidity. Take spirulina together with a small amount of lemon juice or a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in water. It is precisely an acidic environment that maximizes the conversion of iron to the ferrous form, which is better absorbed in the intestine. Apple cider vinegar or lemon juice before meals helps maintain acidity. Sixth, consider the effect of inflammation on iron. With chronic inflammation of any nature, iron is redistributed. It moves from the blood into tissues as a protective mechanism against bacteria. Ferritin levels may be elevated in this case, not because of iron sufficiency, but due to an inflammatory response. This is exactly why in inflammatory conditions, CRP and IL-6 are additionally assessed to correctly interpret ferritin. There is a practical reference point. If ferritin is elevated, say 150, but CRP is also high and transferrin is reduced and its saturation is low, then this is the picture of anemia of inflammation. Iron is locked in depots and not being utilized. It is precisely this situation that requires not additional iron, but treatment of the underlying inflammatory disease. Now, specifically about spirulina as it relates to iron deficiency. Composition of 2 capsules. Daily dosage. Spirulina 800 milligrams, including beta-carotene of at least 0.8 milligrams. Capsule shell of hydroxypropyl methylcellulose, vegan without gelatin. Spirulina is one of the most nutritionally dense natural products. Protein makes up to 60% of dry mass. In addition to iron, spirulina contains chlorophyll, beta-carotene, B vitamins, gamma-linolenic acid, phycocyanin. It is precisely the combination of all these components in one natural product that creates a synergistic effect unachievable with isolated supplements. 3 specific mechanisms as they relate to iron deficiency. First, a source of non-heme iron with natural cofactors. Spirulina contains a significant amount of iron per unit of weight, together with beta-carotene and B vitamins that improve its absorption. It is precisely the absence of aggressive effects on the gastrointestinal tract, unlike ferrous sulfate, that makes spirulina a valuable source of iron for people with sensitive digestion. Second, beta-carotene as a built-in cofactor for iron absorption. Conversion of beta-carotene to vitamin A improves absorption of non-heme iron through reduction of the inhibitory effect of phytates and stimulation of transferrin. It is precisely this natural combination that makes spirulina a more bioavailable source of iron than plant foods without vitamin A in their composition. There is an additional mechanism of beta-carotene that is important for iron deficiency. Beta-carotene improves iron absorption from a single meal, even in the presence of inhibitors, phytates from grains and legumes, tannins from tea. This is exactly what makes it particularly valuable for people whose diet is rich in plant-based iron inhibitors. Third, complete protein composition for supporting hemoglobin synthesis. The globin part of hemoglobin is constructed from amino acids. Spirulina contains all essential amino acids in significant quantities. This is exactly why spirulina works as a complex nutritional support for hematopoiesis, both iron and building blocks for hemoglobin. There is an important fact about spirulina protein. Its digestibility is about 85 to 90%. This is significantly higher than for most plant proteins. This is exactly why spirulina is a particularly valuable source of amino acids for vegetarians and vegans, who are simultaneously at risk for both iron deficiency and deficiency of complete protein. How to take it? 2 capsules per day with meals. For maximum iron absorption, add a source of vitamin C, half a glass of orange or tomato juice, a few lemon slices. It is precisely the combination of spirulina with vitamin C that is the optimal scheme for maximum iron absorption. Course, at least 3 months with ferritin monitoring. There is an important question about compatibility. Spirulina should not be taken simultaneously with calcium or zinc preparations. They compete for intestinal transport proteins. Optimally, spirulina with a source of vitamin C in the morning, calcium and zinc at night or during the day. It is precisely this time spacing of intake that allows each nutrient to be absorbed as effectively as possible. The link to spirulina in the description of this video. Fatigue is not always stress, not always character, and not always age. Sometimes it is iron. There is an encouraging fact. Iron deficiency is one of the few nutritional deficiencies whose correction gives quick and noticeable subjective feedback. Many people already after 4 to 6 weeks of proper correction note, "I finally wake up rested." It is precisely this fast feedback from the body that makes diagnosing and correcting iron deficiency one of the most valuable steps in nutritional practice. It is precisely latent ferritin deficiency with normal hemoglobin that is one of the most common and most frequently overlooked causes of chronic fatigue. 3 concrete steps. Get ferritin tested, not just hemoglobin. If ferritin is below 30, discuss correction with a doctor or nutritionist. Add spirulina daily with vitamin C for nutritional iron support without aggressive effects on digestion. You deserve energy, not as a half measure, for real. And one final thought. If you recognize yourself in this video, don't put it off. Get your ferritin tested. It is precisely one simple test that often explains what several years of fatigue could not explain. And finally, about the ecology of spirulina. Spirulina is grown in controlled water bodies and is one of the most environmentally clean protein crops. It requires neither cultivated land nor pesticides. At the same time, per unit of protein, it consumes significantly less water than any animal source. This is exactly why spirulina is a nutrient of the future, simultaneously for health and for the planet. There is a concluding observation about spirulina and iron absorption in vegetarians. In several studies in people who had switched to plant-based eating, adding spirulina to the diet prevented a decline in ferritin during the first 3 to 6 months, a critically important transition period. This is exactly why spirulina is the first nutrient I recommend considering when transitioning to vegetarianism or veganism. There is a final practical tip about spirulina storage. Spirulina should be stored in a dark, cool place. It is sensitive to light and heat. It is precisely proper storage that preserves its nutritional composition and biological activity until the end of its shelf life. If this video was helpful, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Questions about deficiencies and nutrition, write in the comments. I read and respond. See you in the next video.